Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ashok. This video is the continuation part of LWC Live Project, where I already have created two videos which covers these points. So in first video, we have discussed about use case, like what we are covering as part of this live project. And after that, we have created a new SFDX project and authorized that with Salesforce org. And also we have discussed about all the required database objects and created them into Salesforce org. And then in second part, we have created and deployed new LWC component and also created a new Lightning app page and created our component into that. And finally created a model pop-up to create new board and also created a Apex class to save board and board sections data into database. Okay. So these all points we have already covered in previous videos. And if you have not watched those videos till now, then please take link from description and start with first video, else you won't be able to follow all the steps that we have in this video. And if you have already watched and completed all the steps, then you are good for this part. Okay, so now let's have a look on agenda that we will cover today in this video. So today, first of all, we will create a new Apex method to get data of all the boards, and after that we will add Lightning data table in boards component and show boards list as a table, and also we will add a open board button in table with each row. And once we are done with these points, then we will create a new Lightning record page for board object, and on clicking of open board button we will redirect user on board record page. Okay, so all these points we will cover today in this video. But if you are new in this video series or have not watched previous parts, then you might face challenges to complete tasks along with me. So before moving ahead with these parts, please watch previous parts and complete all the points which were covered in previous parts. And also I'm uploading this code on GitHub. So if you get any kind of issue with your implementation, then you can check out my code on GitHub. Okay. Now let's start today's video and start working on new Apex method to get boards list. And for that, let's open our project in VS Code that we have created in first video. Alright, now I'm in my VS Code and already opened Design Retro Board project, and this is the board controller class that we have created in last video and added a method to save board data. Now here let's create one more method to get all the boards data. So first let me write the code, then I will explain it to you. Okay, so I have created new Aura enabled Apex method which will return list of boards, and method name we have get boards. Now if you will see in this method, then here we have a simple SQL query to get data from board object and selecting ID, name, description and number of sections column, and set descending order by with created date column. So we will always get new data first and holding this response into boards variable which has list board type, and finally returning board variable from here, which means whatever boards data we will get from this query, that we are returning from this method. Okay, so this is a simple method with SQL query, and here we don't have any where condition, but if required you can add that also after object name. Okay, now to show boards list, let's call this method into LWC component, and to call any Apex method in LWC, first we need to import method using Salesforce Apex module. So let me import this method in LWC component. Okay, so if you want to call any Apex method in LWC component, then this is the first requirement. I mean, first we have to import method using Salesforce Apex module, and here after Apex we need to provide our Apex class name, that is board controller in this case, and after dot we need to provide method name, and in this case that is get boards. So I have written here dot get boards. Okay, and after importing method in JS file, now here in LWC we have two ways to call any Apex method. First is using wire decorator and second is using imperative approach. So to call any apex method in LWC, we can use any of these approaches. But if you don't know which one should be used when, then that I have already explained in detail in my crash course video. But let me explain at high level here also. So if you want to get data on component load, then we can use wire decorator. Or if you want to get data on some actions, like on button click or on some drop down value change, then we have to go with imperative approach, because with wire decorator we don't have much control to call method. In case of wire decorator, method will be automatically get called by framework when component get load or when reactive parameters value get changed. And at other side, if we talk about imperative approach, then there we have good control to call apex method. Like we can write code to call apex method in any JavaScript method. For example, we have called this saveboard method in handle submit method here. But we can't call wire method inside any JavaScript method. And for that, we have to write code out of the methods. And if we call apex method using wire decorator, then the response of that method will be saved into client-side cache. Client-side cache means our browser's cache. So whenever we will try to call same method again and again from same or different components, then request will only fulfill from client side and no server call made. I mean, if LWC will find data in client-side cache, then it won't call apex method again and won't go to the server to get same data. So that's why performance with wire decorator is very good. So if you have a requirement where you want to get data on component load, then you should call method using wire decorator. Or if you want to call method on some actions, then you should call method using imperative approach. And if you want to see how to call apex method using imperative approach, then this is the example. I mean, this saveboard method we have called with imperative approach. And if you want to call apex method using wire decorator, then we have to mark method cacheable true with aura enable. Okay. So now in our case, we only want to get and show data on component load. So we can use wire decorator in this case. So first let me write the code, then I will explain it to you. Okay, so to call any apex method using wire decorator, first we need to write @wire and also need to import wire from LWC module. Now here we can use wire service in two ways, either as a property or as a method. So if you have a requirement where you want to perform some more logics with the data that you have received, or you want to do something more once data received, then you can use wire method. For example, once data received, you want to do some calculation, or you want to update some flags, like you want to set loader property to false. So once data received, then you can hide loader. So if you have such kind of requirements, then you can go with the wired method. And if you want to see example like how wired method looks like, then let me call same apex method with wired method as well. Okay, so this is the example of wired method, and this above one is the example of wired property. So if you don't want to do anything once data received, then you can use wired property, else you can use wired method. And in this method, here we can write our logic that we want to perform once data received. Okay, and also if you want to pass parameters into apex method, then you can pass that in this way. Okay, so this is the name of parameter that we will have in our apex method, and after colon, here we can use static value or any property. And also if you want to make it reactive, reactive means once parameter property value gets changed, then this apex method should be called again. And to make it reactive, we need to add $with property in single quote like this. Okay, so this is how we can pass one or multiple parameters in apex method using wire property or methods. But as of now, we don't have any parameter to pass, and also we don't want to perform any extra logic once we receive data from apex method. So we can only go with simple wired property. So now let's remove this other code. Okay, Now in this boards wired property, as a response we will get two properties, data and error. So wherever we want to get actual data, that we have written from apex method, then we have to write boards.data like this. Okay, so now we have called apex method using wire decorator, and we will get data into this boards property. So now as a next step, let's write HTML markup to show data table, and we want to show table below this add button icon. So let's write markup here. Okay, so what I have done here, to show data in tabular format, we have used out of box lightning component, which is data table, and added required attributes. So in this key field attribute, we need to provide a unique value field name. So we have provided ID here, and what all data we want to show in this table, that we need to provide in this data attribute. And we have our actual data into boards.data property, so we have written that here. And next we have used columns attribute and passed columns property, but that we have not created in JavaScript file. We will create that now, and in that columns property we need to provide an object array which can hold all the configurations related to columns that we want to show in this table, like what will be the title of column, which property value you want to show in this column, and what is the type of this column value, and is this column editable or not, right? So in this columns object, we can define behavior and look and feel of our data table. Okay, now let's declare columns constant in our JavaScript file and define all the columns that we want to bind in table with required configurations. And before that, first let's say in demo implementation, like what all columns we want to show here. So here we can see, first we need to show name, then description, then number of sections, and at last we need to show a column for open board button. So let's create columns array and define all the columns. Okay, so I have added all the required columns with label and field name property, and here label means what will be the heading of column, and field name means which result set property we want to bind with this column. For example, my column name should be number of sections, and in this column we want to show value of this number of sections field, which we are getting in this boards.data property from apex method. Okay, so this is how I have bind all the columns, and in last column we want to show open board button, so I have added that as well. But if you notice here, I didn't bind label and field name property. Why? Because I don't want to show anything in column heading, and also I don't want to show any data from result set, and we only want to show button. So we have defined button in type property, and in type attributes property we have provided values for other attributes that we want to bind with button, like label, title, name, value. Okay, now let's assign this columns constant in a property, because as we have discussed in past videos, like we can't declare constant inside component class, so we have declared it outside of component class. But now if you want to access these columns in HTML template, then we need to create a separate property inside component class and need to assign this constant. Okay, so I have created this columns property and assigned columns constant. So this is how we can declare constants outside of this component class, and to use them into HTML template, we can assign them into separate properties. Okay, so now we are done with our code. Like we have created a apex method and called this method using wire decorator. But as we have discussed in past, if we want to call any apex method with wire decorator, then with aura enable, we also need to add cacheable true. So let's add that first, then we will go for deployment. Okay, so this is the requirement to call any Apex method using wire decorator. Now let's quickly deploy these metadata and test it. Deployment is done. Alright, now we can see a table here with all the defined columns, and also we can see here a record that we have created in last video, right? And if you want to hide this checkbox column, then you can add attribute for that as well with data table markup. And also if you want to show no records found text when we don't have any data, then that you can try by yourself, because I have already explained that in live project 1. Or if you don't want to add, that is also fine. Okay. Now as a next agenda item, let's create a new record page for board object, and for that let's open setup and app builder. Here now let's click on new button, and now here let's select record page and click on next, and here let's give custom board name and select board object. Click on next and select one region here, because we only want to show our LWC component in whole page, and click on finish. Okay, now we are in app builder interface, and here we can add our LWC components on this page, but as of now we don't have component created for it, and that will create and add in next video. And for now let's click on save and activate it. And make it org default. Alright, we are done with this configuration. Now let's close this and open our boards page again. And now we want to open board record page when we click on this open board button, and also once new board created successfully. And for that we need to create on click handler, but you know this button is the part of Lightning data table. So as we have discussed in previous data table videos, like we can't create on click handler directly for the buttons which we have in data table, but we can add raw action event handler on data table. So once we'll click on any button in data table, then that handler method will get called, and there we can perform our logics. Okay, so let's add raw action listener with data table and bind handler method. Okay, I have added on raw action listener with data table and defined raw action handler method, and also created this method here in JavaScript file. And now here what we wanted to do, we want to get board ID on which we have clicked and redirect user on board page. And you know this raw action is the custom event which data table will fire when we click on any button, and while dispatching this event, data table will add action and current row detail in detail property. So in this event.detail property, we will get two properties, row and action, and row will contain all the data that we have with row, like ID, board name, description and number of sections, and action will contain detail of button on which we have clicked. So if you want to get button details like button title, button name, then these kind of details we can get in action property. And to get board record ID, we have used row.id. Okay. Now in LWC, if you want to navigate user from one page to another, then for that we have to use Lightning navigation service. So in LWC, navigation service can help us in many ways, like to generate URL for particular page, or to get current page reference, or also if you want to navigate or redirect user from one page to another. So now to achieve our this requirement, let's use navigation service and redirect on board record page. Okay, so what I have done here, first of all I have imported this navigation mixin function from lightning navigation module, and after that we have applied this method to our component base class, and now we are good to use navigation features, because once we will apply navigation mixin with lightning element, then we have access to use navigation APIs. So to redirect user on board record page, I have created another method, this navigate to board record page, and use navigation mixin.navigate API, which can help us to navigate or redirect on any Salesforce page or any other URL as well from LWC component. And here in type property, we need to provide our navigation type, or we can say page type, like object page, record page, and relationship page. So in our case, we have to provide a standard record page because we want to navigate on record page, but on which objects record page and which record should be opened, that we have to define here in attributes. So here in record ID property, we are sending our board ID on which we have clicked, and in object API name, we have passed our board object and what mode we want to show once user redirect on record page, view or edit. So we have provided view mode here. Okay, so this is how we can use lightning navigation service to redirect user on another pages. And now let's call this method in raw action handler and also in handle submit method. Okay, so we have called this method at two places. Once we are creating new board and when we click on open board button. Okay, so now let's quickly deploy and test it. Okay, so we are getting an error here, exception while getting the LWC bundle for reference. Okay, so it seems we made mistake while importing this navigation mixin. So let's scroll to top. Oh, so we have used @ here, but if we are importing anything from lightning, then @ is not required here. So let's remove it and deploy again. Okay, now we have deployed our changes and refreshed this browser window. And now to test navigation functionality, let's click on open board button. Alright, now we have redirected on board record page, and here in URL, you can see our board object and record ID and also view mode that we have provided in navigation service. So it means our navigation is working fine. And now here you can notice we can't see anything here in this record page as of now. On this we will work in next part. Okay, so now we have redirected once we click on open board button, and now let's create new board record and test redirection from there as well. Okay, so here I have provided new board details like board name, description, and number of sections, and also provided title for each section. And now once we click on this save button, then we should be redirected on record page with newly created record ID. So let's click on save. Okay, now you can see success toast message, and also we have redirected on board record page. Okay, so that's it in this part, because we have covered all these agenda items, and in next video we will cover these points, like we will create a new board detail component, and also we'll create a new Apex method to read board sections and items data. Then we will move on the UI part to create sections with heading and new button, and then we will iterate all the added sections, and finally we will work on add new section item. Okay, thank you for watching this video. And if this video helped you to learn something new, then please hit on like and subscribe button, and also share your feedback in comments. That will really give me motivation to create more videos like this. Okay, I will see you in next part.